Hello, do not attempt to adjust your internet. This is the Comic Book Chronicles.
What's up, everybody? Hold on, I don't have the right sound, the sounds up. Look at that. Look at that.
I am your host, Radicat, even though you can't see my face right now. If you're watching the video version, that's fine. Nobody wants to. But I am Radicat. You can find me at Radicat on Twitter. You can find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter. You can find me at CBCaps on Instagram.
Carolina with Columbia down the way.
And the sound effects you've heard come from our man in Brooklyn, Agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram.
What's up, everybody?
I had another one for you, which I think you have already, but I forgot to pull up my sound effects for it, so it's fine later on. But yes, this is the Comic Book Chronicles. Which you can find at the Cold Slither Podcast Network. That's cspn.us.
Do it today.
You could also find us on your podcast perusal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Cold Slither Podcast Network's SoundCloud page.
Make sure to hit like and subscribe and leave the 5-star reviews.
Yeah, all of that. You know what? I'll save the live stuff for later on, and so we can just go ahead and get into Mellow. What does? We can go ahead and get into the books of the week, starting off with Miss Marvel, Beyond the Limit #4.
Ms. Marvel Beyond the Limit #4 is written by Samira Ahmed, with art by Andre Genole and color art by Triona Farrell, and letters by, of course, our very own lettering paisan, VC's Joe Caramagna.
So this is the penultimate issue, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And we get one piece of information that we did not get, that we haven't fully gotten, and that is the backstory on how this other, I don't want to say fake Miss Marvel, but this other Miss Marvel comes into our universe and why she has a beef out on our Kamala.
Right.
So we pretty much get that backstory. And as I was telling Agent 70 before the show, if you look closely in one panel, you can see a kind of familiar looking set of bracelets that an alternate version of Miss Marvel is wearing in that flashback, which kind of looks like slightly almost like the bracelets of from the ones from the recent Miss Marvel trailer, but more closely a kind of truncated set of bands from another Marvel character.
Right.
That they may be patterning her MCU powers off of.
Right, and that's definitely where it seems like they're going.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of because if you think about it, that particular Marvel comic book hero has the parallel ability with energy that Miss Marvel does with her embiggening powers to a certain extent,
Yes.
like stretching, creating elongated shapes. So, it's an interesting thing that they would try to adapt Kamala Khan into kind of a hybrid of the two characters.
Yep. And being that we only have one more issue of this, and I'm not sure if we're getting any other Miss Marvel books before the show happens in a couple of months, this would probably be the place where they would, if they intend to do that. We're not suggesting that they're exactly doing that, but
Right.
Given that they've kind of, as we've said before, paralleled the MCU back into the comic books more frequently than not.
Or at least moving them closer, which is what we've seen with Shang-Chi, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah. So we see that in here. Like I said, we see why this other character, Karan, has a beef with Kamala, going into the final issue of this series. So, which I think I can't remember, because like we can also add the fact that this is Kamala kind of sort of going through her own multiversal thing, but not in the same way that Miles and um whoever the other characters, Jessica Jones and whoever else is and or will be having their own multiversal, Gwen Stacy having their own multiversal adventures. So
I mean, there's a book out this week called Avengers Forever, and that is all about the multiversal adventures of many characters.
True. Yes, there is that also. But I mean, like singular characters having their own,
Right. Kind of like their own adventures across the multiverse. I gotcha. Right.
So actually, I guess that being the case, we can actually talk about that book if you want to.
What's that? Avengers Forever?
Yeah.
Give me a moment while I pull that up. Gonna need a moment to pull this up. I apologize in advance for tonight. All right, so Avengers Forever number 4 is written by Jason Aaron. Art is by Jim Towe, Towe, and Guru EFX is on colors. Letters are by VC's Corey Pettit. So, I don't think Roddy Cat is that familiar with Jason Aaron's Thor run, which is where we were introduced to this distant future of Thor. This is the God Butcher and the three versions of Thor story.
So
like the King Thor, this is like these are daughters of the late or the very far flung into the future King Thor.
Right. So I think I read that 4-issue King Thor miniseries where they were in. So I did read enough to know that.
I gotcha. I mean, they were introduced in the Thor run, but that definitely provided the capper to that, to that story, to that point.
Right.
That King Thor story. So
yeah.
Right. So at least you're familiar with them through that. And that's a good thing, because ultimately they've actually proven to be fairly interesting, even though they're kind of stereotypical, because they do, kind of occupy certain tropes, as it were.
They're like 3 aspects of him, right?
Say again?
They're like kind of like 3 aspects of him, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And, it's interesting to read through this and kind of pick up where we left off with the characters, and then see them being brought into the fold of this Avengers Forever story. And, it's hard to spoil because there's just so much going on. There are just a bunch of variant characters being tossed about and put together and knocked against each other. It is very much like Jason Aaron is playing with a pile of action figures and just sort of jamming them, like knocking them against each other and saying, well, this is what's going on now. Ultimately, the story is moving forward. There are some developments that involve some of the story points that Jason Aaron introduced in that King Thor and that the late several stories that involved the elder King Thor in the Thor run. So, there are some central themes, like the Phoenix has played a central role in a lot of these stories, and that is the case here as well. It's a different Phoenix though, so that proves interesting. If you're not familiar with it, I won't spoil it. Also, what you were saying?
I was going to ask you about that, but go ahead and continue.
Oh yeah, I was going to say hold your thought, because I was just going to finish, and ultimately, it's nice to see Robbie Reyes playing a role that is central to a story. And finally, at the very end of the book, we get a nice little cliffhanger splash page of a character that we all knew was coming in the story eventually.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's not a better late than never, but it's about time. So you were saying?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that Phoenix that that we see pieces of in this story, and I'm like, has that Phoenix shown up in that Thor?
Yes.
Story? Okay, but not that King Thor story, just
prior to that, during
gotcha.
I mean the greater King Thor story, not
Gotcha.
that miniseries, but the
Gotcha.
greater King Thor story.
Okay. Yeah, because they reference him like someone that's shown up before. I'm like, okay, sure. But like I said, like you did say, I did not read that main story, so I wasn't sure about that part. Okay, cool. But yeah, they are set out on an adventure. In closing, that I guess going to put that particular Phoenix back together again. I assume.
Yeah, that I think is part of the quest. That is going to play a role in the story.
Mm-hmm. And like Agent 70 said, yeah, we do get someone that's like, yeah, not surprised this person showed up, you know, and I guess well timed. I don't know. Actually, how many more issues do we have of this? Is it one more, two?
Of what?
Of Avengers Forever.
I thought it was, if not an ongoing, at least 12.
Oh, okay.
My understanding is that this is going to be going on for a while.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I'm going to look it up now while you pick the next book, and I'll let you know.
Sure. I guess. Well, since we brought it up earlier, Iron Man 18, excuse me.
All right. Iron Man. Okay. Well, I can tell you, because I know that this is the case, the writer on this current run of Iron Man and this specific issue, allow me a moment to pull this up.
I can do that while
you have it up?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
So, creators team is writer Christopher Cantwell, art by Lan Medina, color artist Frank Darmada, and letters by VC's Joe Caramagna.
Our lettering paisan.
Yes, I leave that for you to say.
You're just so uncomfortable with foreign languages that aren't French.
Not really, but sure. Okay. Well, let's put it away. In respect of people's names, yes, but
there it is.
Yeah, but
there it is.
So we have a little bit more of an introspective issue here in this Iron Man issue. Actually, I forgot to put change the cover here while I'm doing that. We have Tony talking to Patsy about pretty much what he. Well, actually, they don't really talk about it long, but they talk about what he did last issue at the end of last issue. Oh wow, did I not pull that one? That's crazy. Well, anyway, while I pull that up. But yeah, we talk about they're pretty much talking about they're comparing their histories, and we get we hear a little bit of Patsy's history, which some folks might not know, and we get we definitely go into Tony's back history a little bit and some stuff that we know. Well, most of the stuff that we know. I feel like there was one shot in there that was kind of lifted from the MCU, or seemingly lifted from the MCU when he's in the garage, kind of walking. But there's also a couple of good panels of the Mach 1 and the Mach 2 armors that I pretty much enjoyed. Outside of that, and as I was telling Agent 70 before we started, like, yeah, we know where this is going because we know there's a thing that's going to happen. I thought it was going to be in this issue between the two characters, but obviously they have to get past this one particular point. But it still seems kind of weird, even them basically using this issue to try to flesh some of that out before pretty much putting things back in the box. And that part kind of feels like it came kind of rushed to me because, as we know, Tony had cosmic powers. he had kind of gone a little loopy with it, and pretty much did the same thing that Korvac did many moons ago in the pages of the Avengers, and setting it right in a similar fashion, with one little wrinkle, similarly in the pages of Avengers. So I found that kind of amusing as a person who remembers that original story. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think about this one?
I thought it was an interesting read.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it just the way it played out. You know, as you said, it was well put. It's a very introspective story. It is a story that I felt paid off better. I would have paid off better, and we discussed this just before the show started. It would have paid off better for me if I had read this in a trade paperback, because I think the monthly grind took a lot of the effect of the story from me, or at least I got a little frustrated, to be honest, because I personally dropped the physical book because I just wasn't happy with the pacing of the story and where I thought it was going. Although I really like this issue, but for, and no offense to, was it Ian Medina or Lon Medina? Lon Medina, the artist. You know what? I could have, I would have dealt with this art if maybe he had another pass at it or two or five. It seemed a little rushed. I don't know about you.
I think I could probably think of a couple of spots where I can agree to that, but I didn't really look at it that closely, I'll be honest.
You didn't bump on it? I definitely bumped on it. I mean, ultimately there are, and again, we've been talking about this over the last several weeks. There are clear signs that the MCU Tony Stark has melded and encroached upon, melded with and encroached upon the comic book Tony Stark. Specifically in this issue, we have scenes lifted almost, like frame by frame from the original Iron Man movie from 2008, because this is, as Roddy Cat said, kind of a introspective, but also a retrospective of Tony Stark's career.
Right.
So,
which is what I was referencing earlier.
Right. So what we have, but obviously we're melding it together with the 616, the comic book stuff is in here as well. So, it's I have to be honest. That's really the only thing I have to say, is that it felt like I would have appreciated this more if it had been like a single read as opposed to the monthly grind.
No, that's fair, because I could just like I said, I could see where that could be an issue with this. Because yeah, as you said, like having it come out month to month, you kind of lose some things with all the other stuff that we end up reading.
Absolutely.
So I totally get that. And I'm not even sure how I'm keeping up with like how I'm even keeping up with what happened with it. Like I did, well, I guess it was because pretty much what happened at the end of the last issue was pretty stark. No pun intended.
No pun intended.
But
that's funny.
Yeah, didn't even try. So yeah, outside of that, that's pretty much that. Like I said, we know it's going to a place. They're pretty much cleaning up the toy box so that they can get to that place. But first, we have to deal with what happens at the end of this book. And I suspect the person that shows up at the end of this issue is going to be the one to clean that up. I don't know why they would do that, but I suspect that's what's going to happen.
All right. Well, we're definitely going to find Tony Stark in a different place once this arc is over, and it's almost like Cantwell's own version of Demon in a Bottle.
Mm-hmm.
That's really how this overall arc has played out. From the beginning of his run until issue 18.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Also, yeah, which actually reminds me. I'm glad you said that because yeah, there were. I was kind
Sorry.
of no, it's okay. I was kind of slightly surprised that there were a couple of references to Demon in a Bottle, to the extent that they were, or at least ones that I referenced. Like I don't know. Obviously, you have to be of a certain vintage to even remember Demon in a Bottle and what happened during that whole that whole storyline. But it definitely was like, oh wow, I do remember that panel. Like, or I remember that particular thing happening, or at least the around that time. So that was kind of interesting. That there was a couple of shots that kind of reminded me of that, and the fact that I remembered it actually. That's the other thing because obviously we read a lot of books, so there's a lot of things that we a lot of memories, a lot of things happen to meld together.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, overall that okay, it was a good read. Probably it would be interesting to see if this indeed does read better in trade, like you said. So I don't know if that'll ever happen, but we'll see. You want to throw up one more book, and before we go to wrap it?
Sure. Just wanted to let you know, at least as far as the information that, the limited information that we have, it looks like Avengers Forever is an ongoing.
Oh, huh. Interesting. Okay.
Obviously these things change,
Right.
depending upon sales,
Right.
but as far as I can find out, Avengers Forever is in fact an ongoing.
Well, that's slightly curious. I feel like it doesn't seem like it may have the legs that Savage Avengers did, and apparently will
Yeah,
again. But
not again.
yeah, because yeah, we talked about the fact that they're bringing it back. So, um, but I guess we'll see. Yeah, it's definitely been a interesting book to read. All right, one last book
Want to do
for
Shang-Chi real quick? Shang-Chi
yeah,
number 10.
Shang-Chi number 10.
All righty. Pull this sucker up. Shang-Chi number 10 is written by Jean Luen Yang. Art is by Marcus To. Let's see here. Credits page. Eric Arciniega is the colorist, and the letter on this book is VC's Travis Lanham. So I actually had a good time reading this because it brought back a couple of characters into the fold in terms of the main story arc. Obviously we've been introduced to these various characters in the Five Weapons Society, and they've been kind of split up over the course of the 10 issues. But just as the story intones, there is need for a family reunion, and that reunion is broken up into little bits and pieces over the course of this book. But ultimately, we visit with we visit with one Sister Hammer, who was an early antagonist and proved to be a counter to Shang-Chi, a counterpoint or counterweight to Shang-Chi. And now we catch up with the character doing something I didn't think, it wasn't even on my list of things for the character to do. I mean, that's like the perfect witness protection program style job that the character that Sister Hammer took on.
True.
Right, but again,
what she was doing. Yeah.
No. What I was going to say is, but again, Sister Hammer is brought into part of the story that has now emerged from the MCU side of things, and even more so than when we first were introduced with Sister Hammer. And so the MCU side of the new Shang-Chi story is definitely front and center. We have in this issue, though, as I said, the reunion of sorts of the siblings, the Zheng Zhu progeny, all coming together, at the end of this issue, despite differences and recent differences of opinion and even what at least Brother Saber would deem to be a betrayal. ultimately they do end up having to reunite because they have a mutual enemy. That mutual enemy being their father. Oh, actually, their uncle. So,
Wait, I thought
you know,
it
and that's pretty much where we get to at the end of the issue.
I thought it was a grandfather or great grandfather.
Was it the grandfather?
I'm not sure. It was.
I forget.
Yeah,
It's
'cause I think it was,
it's definitely a paternal relative.
right.
I forget. I think
No,
it is.
no, it was
You
the
might be
mom's.
right.
It was a relative to the mom.
Oh, it's the mother's father.
Right. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because remember, because he was like, "Yeah, I hate everybody who's your dad's. You know, everybody.
That's right.
Your dad.
That's right.
You
That's
know,
right.
so
That's right. Yeah, because he's the Ta Lo native. That's correct.
right. So, but yeah, there is that, and yeah, I agree with you about this. How the interesting bits of this issue and the family reunion thing, and I guess they all have to come together. Also, well, I don't know if you mentioned this. Someone gets Star Ward, and that's not a term that is caught on, but let's face it, it is a thing. It's just,
Yeah, absolutely. I did notice that.
and the fact that someone else, and the fact that Shang-Chi kind of felt it, which I mean that's not a part of it, but still, an interesting side effect um, to that happening. So I was like, they seem to be doing that a lot more in the Marvel universe. You know, that corporate synergy is a thing, or excuse me, that universe synergy is a thing. Seem like. But at any rate, that is Shang-Chi number 10. Still continues to be a pretty good read. We'll see where this storyline goes going forward. That being the case, we can go into rapid fire.
Gonna spin it up.
I ain't got time to move.
Alrighty then. Well, since you only got a couple more books, go ahead and.
All right. All right. So first up for me is 10 Deaths of Wolverine number 5 of 5. So the 10 Deaths and 10 Lives of Wolverine stories came to an end this week. This issue is written by Benjamin Percy with art by Federico Vicentini. Colors are by Dijo. I was listening to the Marvel Pull List podcast this week, and I heard Ryan Panagos, Agent M, pronounce the name as Dijo Lima as the color artist on this book. And this book is lettered by VC's Corey Pettit. So I'm torn about these two companion series. You could kind of read them as one whole series, call it the 10 Lives and 10 Deaths of Wolverine. And you've heard me kind of rail about it and also kind of appreciate what it's doing, because at the end of the day, it is kind of a study of Wolverine and his, role in the Marvel universe, but especially his role on Krakoa as part of, the elder statesman of the X-Men at this point. This issue, this series, and the two series together really do constitute a strict continuation. It's not a one-off. These are just continuations of several storylines that have been flowing through the pages of X-Force, Wolverine, and even a little bit of X-Men. Obviously, Benjamin Percy is on this book, and he is bringing a lot of the concepts that he was using in both Wolverine and X-Force and brought them into this book. So it makes perfect sense that he would that these stories would reflect the continuation of the stories he was doing in those two books. Ultimately, I think for anyone who is interested in the goings on of Krakoa, essentially what you think matters, quote unquote, I think this is probably going to be one of the more impactful. It may not be truly crucial, but it's probably one of the more impactful, or some of the more impactful stories that have come out of the post-Hickman Krakoa story arcs and storylines. Hickman is still there, but he's definitely not actively writing the stories. He's probably, he's consulting for the most part. He's still like the chairman of X, as it were. Next up is a Wolverine patch, number 1 of 5. So this book is written by the incredible Larry Hama, and I will circle back to the rest of the creative team when I pull this up. But bottom line is, this is a very idiosyncratic story. This is definitely a story that is set in a particular timeline. That timeline being, or time and place, that time and place being Madripoor. We're talking actually mid 80s, late 80s Wolverine. You know, that initial run where Wolverine is running around as Patch, the Buscema art on that initial Wolverine, not the first, well, the first ongoing series, because his limited series was Frank Miller, right, and Chris Claremont, but the ongoing series is where that Patch persona, that Patch character was introduced, and this is definitely in that that has that frame of reference. So if you're looking for something, you know, kind of fun to read, you know, it's definitely not of today's comics, but it is still, you know, interesting to see these characters that come from that time, that time and place, gracing the pages of a comic book again. And Andrea DeVito penciled this book. LeBeau Underwood inked it. Sebastian Chang is the colorist, and VC's Clayton Cowles is the letterer. And last but not least, for me, is Straight from the Streets of Killadelphia, number 20. So Rodney Barnes Rodney Barnes is the writer of this book, and I'm going to go on with the other members of the creative team when I get my copy up. But I have to say, this is a pivotal issue because there is a lot of exposition involving yet another founding father of the United States, proving to be, let's just say, a part of something supernatural, but something separate from what we've been introduced to up until this point. Specifically, a founding father who is not a vampire, who's also not a lycanthrope or lycanthrope. You know, those are the two kind of main supernatural beings that we've been introduced to. You know, there is another character who has who wields ancient magics, you know, in the story. But it was interesting to see that, you know, how Rodney Barnes treated this particular founding father, and how he laid out, you know, this character's backstory. Because, you know, we've gotten 20 issues. We've essentially gotten, I want to say, 3 arcs of Killadelphia. You know, I forget if there were 5 or 6 issues each, but we've essentially gotten 3 arcs of Killadelphia. So, you know, we've seen the evolution of the characters. We've seen John Adams go from, you know, one side of the railroad tracks to another, you know, quite literally sometimes. And so it's always interesting to see these characters reintroduced in the pages of this book for, you know, for lots of different, you know, I hate to say this, bloody shenanigans, because that's essentially one of the draws of this book, is that there is a plenty of gore. You know, like it's abstract gore. It's not like gory. You know, it's not gore for gore's sake, but it's definitely, you know, there's definitely some you know, there's some monster violence going on in this book. So just give me a second. I think I skipped past the credits page. I want to speak about the art, because I thought that this issue in particular. So again, as I said, Rodney Barnes has the story, is behind the story, the writer. Art in this book and in the series as a whole is by Jason Sean Alexander, and I think his work in this particular issue was phenomenal, very, very on point. There are artists though by German Aramuspe, Sherrard Jackson, and Nicole Palmquist were part of the art team on this book. Colors are by Luis Nicht, and letters are by Marshall Dillon. I have to tell you, I enjoyed reading this. Killadelphia number 20 is definitely a candidate for Click of the Week for me. And that's it for me.
Nice. All right. For myself, we start off with Trial of the Amazons, Wonder Girl number 1. And, oops, that's the wrong book. That's the wrong, right book, wrong cover. It's fine. Don't worry about it. All right. Creative team is script and art by Joel Jones, colors by Jordi Belair, letters by Pat Brousseau. This is part 4 of the Trial of the Amazons of 7. Part 2 of this particular book. Excuse me, part 1 of 2 of this particular book, though. And here we basically see where Yara and the Esquisitas, why specifically Yara and his Exquisitas end up going to Themyscira and entering the contest that has been put upon there. Part of it also is Yara. Like I said, if you are not caught up with the last few issues of Wonder Girl, you get a little bit caught up in that, and that's for people who are probably, not reading this, who is not reading that book, but probably reading Wonder Woman or Nubia, for that matter. So you get a little bit of that. She's got a little bit of beef with the gods, and she's kind of wondering why the Themyscirans are quote unquote under the boot of the gods after all they've done, or after all she believes that they're done. But like I said, she goes to this island with the rest of the Esquisitas, and we kind of get cut to the night of spoiler alert, Hippolyta's murder. But before she gets murdered, where they're at a feast, there was a nice little touching moment between Yara and Hippolyta, which was nice. Apparently, Hippolyta knew Yara's mother. So, and then it kind of cuts to Cassie Sandsmark, who's heading up the investigation of Hippolyta's murder, and then it kind of cuts back and forth. It sort of cuts back and forth between Cassie and Yara, but the rest of the book is pretty much more Yara than Cassie. In that, leading up to what looks to be before, well, the naming of all of the champions that are entering the contest. Which, if you've read Trial of the Amazons number 1, I believe, from last week, or Wonder Woman from last week, you kind of know them all. Actually, yeah, it was Wonder Woman from last week. You know them all if you're keeping up with this particular story. Next book is Aquaman, Green Arrow Deep Target number 6. It is the penultimate issue of this miniseries. There we go. Let's see. Writer Brandon Thomas, art by Roman Cliche or Cliquette. I don't know which one. I'm going to go say it's Cliche. Colors by Ulysses Areola, and letters by Josh Reed. So, presumably after the end of last issue, Ollie and Arthur are back in their own bodies, and they're pretty much going after an earlier version of this General Anderton, who was with them in a later state, and seemingly look like they're cleaning everything up, but something's still not altogether finished. Ollie kind of takes it upon himself to call in some Justice League help, while sending Arthur back home to get some rest. But it seems as though there may or may not be something amiss with Arthur himself. In everything that is gonna went on with it, there might have been another switch that happened if you've been keeping up with this book. But I guess we will find out what the deal is in that is in the next issue, which will be the last one. Next book, Robin, number 12. Bing. Sorry, folks. If you're watching the video version, I got to do a little tweaking here and there for some stuff. Writer Joshua Williamson, pencils by Roger Cruz, inks by Norm Rapman, colors by Luis Guerrero, and letters by ALW's Troy Pateri. So the short strokes is that last issue we saw the end of the tournament, and and Damon and a crew of folks dealing with some loose ends involving the tournament. But Damien still has some beef with his mom and his granddad. His mom specifically in this issue, but he basically goes back to Gotham with a vial of this Lazarus pit juice to potentially do a thing that may or may not have happened, but then ends up with a potential scrap and possible recollection. Not recollection, that's the wrong word I was looking, but basically may have been starting to resolve some issues with he and his mom, who at the end of this basically saying she doesn't like Flatline, who is the young assassin that Damien may or may not be smitten with. And she is right for this, because at the end of this we get a little tease as to what's going on that side, and that is also another tease to the Shadow War, which I believe is going to be starting soon, which actually goes into the next book, Deathstroke number 7. That's the wrong book. There we go. Bing. Sorry about this, folks. Also written by Joshua Williamson, art by Steven Segovia, colors by Hi-Fi, and letters by Steve Wands. So we find out who Respawn is, or I don't want to say who, but what, but basically who and what Respawn is in relation to Deathstroke. We also find out potentially what's going to stoke the fires of Shadow War. I'll put it that way, because of this revelation may have stoked the fires of this going forward. But let's just say it has something to do with the previously mentioned Damien and his family lineage. In relation to Respawn, I will say that. And at the end of this, there is a sudden but inevitable betrayal, but also a weirdly or at least to me, seemingly out of place, Dark Crisis epilogue that I guess is going to go into that whole thing whenever that happens. And I guess that is another thing that's going to be starting up soon. So I don't even know whether I read it or not. Who even knows? Who even cares? Next book, let's see, Icon. Oh, apparently didn't get that one either. Great. Icon and Rocket Season 1, Number 6, written by Reginald Hudlin and Leon Chills, pencils by Doug Braithwaite, inks by Andrew Curry and Doug Braithwaite, colors by Brad Anderson, letters by And World Design. So I believe this is the last issue for season 1, if I'm not mistaken. I believe all of the Milestone Returns books have been doing that. Last issue, Rocket separately, and Icon and his, I would say, new lady friend, Ziamira, were in separate traps. Raquel manages to hold her own for a while, but until the assistance of one Static Shock comes into play, and then and Icon and Mira end up coming to help later on in the issue, and excuse me, they seemingly deal with the current threat, but at the end of it, there seems to be another threat looming in the form of a Shadow Council that this, well, one, a Shadow Council that is going to be uh, continuing the story somewhere else. I'm assuming it's Hardware, because I believe that book is also rounding out the end of its season one. And I know there's supposed to be a couple other Milestone Returns books that are coming back, so it could be maybe the one that's starting up one of those. But also, it ends with another kind of cliffhanger in the fact that Raquel might be being shipped off to Switzerland, which I don't know if that actually happened in the original books or not. But we shall see. Let's see. Next up, Transformers Beast Wars number 14. I'm trying to go through this all fast because I got a little bit more books than Agent 70, so I apologize. Also, we got time restraints a little bit. Written by Eric Burnham, art by Josh Burcham, letters by Jake M. Woods. So, if you're familiar with Beast Wars, this is a pretty much kind of a reboot retelling of it, but not necessarily in the form, in the exact same beats of the show from back in the day. This particular issue kind of does take a note from one of the episodes, and that episode is the one where Optimus Primal pretty much gets riled into a frenzy by some foreign matter. In this case, it's some red energon, which, if you're thinking red kryptonite from Superman 3, kind of similar. I believe it was red kryptonite, but it's kind of similar. Made him real aggy, and I think it also made him drunk, but that's not the case here. But yeah, but the episode where Optimus pretty much goes into a frenzy and goes to attack the Predacon base. It kind of goes along the ways of that, except for the fact that he and Megatron both get intercepted by a third party, who, if you're watching the video version, you can see one of which on the cover, that were made by a third party who was against any Cybertronians being on the planet. Let's just say that. And that's where we leave off there. The next book, which I'm very curious to see if Agent 70 is going to pick up for one part of this, for one star at the very least. Pardon me. Step down here. There we go. Godzilla versus Mighty Morphin Power Rangers number 1.
Yeah, that's a no for me.
As folks may or may not know, Agent 70 is a big Godzilla fan, not so much Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. However,
that's correct.
However, I will say that this story that was done by Cullen Bunn, art by Freddie Williams II, colors by Andrew Dalhouse, and letters by Johanna Natalie, is actually pretty good and is a click of the week for me personally. I like both of those franchises. This is a Boom Studio / IDW collaborations, if you did not know, because one has one license, the other has the other. And of course, the crux of the story is that Rita Repulsa finds the MacGuffin that sends her and her crew and one of the Rangers to an alternate Earth that apparently has an Angel Grove, but also the King of the Monsters, Godzilla. So, and in that fashion, the rest of the Rangers end up following at some point. But before that happens, we get a nice fight between Godzilla and the Dragon Zord, which some would say could be Mecha Godzilla, but this is not going to count. And of course, in that, Rita teams up with the Supreme Commander of Planet X. And the only thing it makes me think of is King Ghidorah, one of MF Doom's alter egos, and the Fine Print song in particularly. Like I said, I enjoyed this because, like I said, I'm a fan of both franchises, and this matchup was actually one that I didn't think I wanted to see. Or I guess not matchup is the fight, but there's going to be a matchup at some point. So Next up, and I believe I'm rounding out my books here. Making sure I didn't miss anything. Maestro. I'm surprised Agent 70 didn't read this one. Maestro World War M #2.
Couldn't get to it.
Yeah, fair enough. I know we had a little thing with books earlier, so. Story by Peter David. Speaking of time out of time books, I guess, in the vein of that Wolverine patch book. But anyway, writer Peter David, art by Herman Peralta, colors by Jesus Bertov, and letters by VC's Ariana Mar. And no, I still have not read Future Imperfect, just in case anyone was asking. But basically, Maestro, let's just say Maestro kind of has it out with Namor and his family under the sea. That kind of goes into a point. I keep forgetting about certain things where this timeline happens in this world, because there's a memory of the Illuminati that is brought up. Interestingly enough, that happened in the 616, the main universe, but I'm not sure if this is the future of the 616 or an alternate future. I've never been too sure about that. Do you know? Because is Future Imperfect supposed to be in the actual future, or is it alternate future?
Say again?
Is Future Imperfect supposed to be in an alternate future or the main future?
It's hard to say. Yeah. Obviously, with the way the multiverse has kind of been expanded and the concept been expanded upon, the way I believe it was the intention of it was that it was going to be one of Hulk's main features. I can't say it was the feature.
Sure. Okay. At any rate, that was a thing that kind of was interesting to me about that being brought up. Also, the fact that the Maestro is breathing underwater, but he's a Hulk, so I guess he can do anything he wants. So yeah, there is that. Without spoiling anything, just in case Agent 70 does intend to want to read this at some point. And my last book is Star Wars Darth Vader #21. Written by Greg Pak, art by Raphael Ainko, colors by Alex Sinclair, letters by VC's Joe Caramagna. The main two things that happen in this book is that Sabe, who is one of Padme's old handmaids, still has a grudge out for Vader, and she has, let's say, tried to enlist a couple of members of the. Well, she has put herself in Crimson Dawn and is enlisting a couple of members to further her own agenda. But first, she's trying to have a chat with them to find out what Vader is doing. So on one part of the book, there is that. And the other side of the book, we still have the bounty hunters that are still kind of going after Crimson Dawn members, which this book is still a part of that Crimson Reign storyline that I guess is still going on. I don't know. Sometimes you kind of lose the thread of some of the stuff with everything that's coming out, or when is what doing what. But yeah, the bounty hunters that are under the employ of Vader are kind of going after some targets. There is some chatter amongst one or two of them about whether Vader will betray them or not before going into said mission. And said mission kind of tends to go a certain way for the most part. And I guess we will see what happens with that or how that finishes up. And that, folks, is it for me. Clicks of the week.
Clicks of the week.
We do have one, excuse me, from Dirt, who says, Rogues #1 for his click. Said it's like the movie Red, or comic if you read it. There's also a DC property. But evil. I still hate that oversized black label format, though. Yeah, I was looking at this book earlier, and I was like, I'm kind of curious about it. I don't know if I'll get a chance to read it, but I may take a chance on it. But basically, it's about Flash's Rogues Gallery and I guess things they get into. Um, yeah, and it's a black label book, which means it's basically you might as well say it's an Elseworld story. So, a little more gritty than in the regular continuity at this point. Well, yeah. You got yours?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Killadelphia number 20. Even though I definitely liked some of the stuff that happened in Shang-Chi number 10, and I really did appreciate what was going on in Iron Man number 18, despite the fact that it felt like the art was left me a little wanting.
Sure.
And of course, I kind of regret not getting X Deaths of Wolverine and X Lives of Wolverine in hard copy in regular comic book form. I may end up trying to track these down, now that the series is over. I don't think it was like a hot seller, but I kind of appreciated, the continuation of the previous storylines and taking them through these books, those storylines, that is.
Gotcha. For myself, I may have rounded out. I definitely say you might want to check out if you're up with the Wonder Woman story and the Trial of the Amazons. Definitely check out Trial of the Amazons Wonder Girl #1 because the art in that with and the story with that with Joel Jones is great. Especially one splash page where all the Esquicitas are there, including one little precious nubbin that is there with a club. You gotta check that. If you've probably seen that going around on the internet if you've been paying attention. But I think I'm actually Iron Man 18 is also is a good one, and for the callback to the episode Transformers Beast Wars number 14 is also a pretty decent one. But I think I'm going to go with, and this is probably not a big surprise, Godzilla versus Mighty Morphin Power Rangers number 1. It was pretty. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a good bit, I would say. That being the case, we can go to the news, but first an ad read.
Our first ad read of the night is for Wink, the personalized wine club. Wink is a world of wine delivered right to your door. From rosé to Cabernet to Torronté, Wink has over 100 styles of wine to discover. Ever try an orange wine? Wink connects you to a world of exclusive wines tailored to your taste and delivered directly to your door. Wink delivers 4 bottles of wine to you every month with free shipping. You can pick your own bottles or let Wink choose and match to your taste. It doesn't cost a thing to become a member, and you can skip or cancel anytime. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy an exclusive discount of $20 off your first order. To place your first order with $20 off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us/wink. That's cspn.us/WINC. Wink Wines through CSPN. Do it today. And now we get into the news.
And we start off as we do every week with the cinematic news. The Umbrella Academy Season 3 release date has been announced, and it is apparently June 22nd. This article also goes into some stuff, I guess, in catch-up of which, or what's been going on, but we don't necessarily need to get into all of that. We just know that there is a teaser trailer out there, and we already know the release date for said show. Next.
Scrolling. Give me a moment, folks. I scroll too far. Harley Quinn Season 3 casts What We Do in the Shadow star Harvey Guillen as Nightwing. So we have another on-screen version of Nightwing. The third season of the Harley Quinn animated series may have found its Nightwing, according to Deadline. Harvey Guillen. What We Do in the Shadows, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, has been cast to voice Dick Grayson's crime-fighting alter ego. Okay.
Speaking of Harley Quinn, season 3 uses a vintage Batman the animated series background art. I guess they were going for a Batman the animated animated series field. In an interview with Slash Film, showrunner Patrick Schumacher shared details about the homage episode. "Quote unquote, we have an episode that's a big love letter to Batman the animated series," said Schumacher. "We even got some original backgrounds from the show that we use in the episode." So, and if folks know, this is where Harley Quinn got her start in Batman the animated series. So that's a nice little callback. Not sure when this episode is coming up, but I'm sure it's coming up to it's in season 3, which doesn't have a release date. Next.
It saddens me that there are definitely multiple generations now that do not know that Harley Quinn was originally or originated in the Batman animated, the animated Batman series, Batman the animated series. So, at least 2 generations now.
Wow, is it that much?
Well, maybe 1.5.
Yeah.
Moving on, George Lopez boards DC's Blue Beetle movie. So the cast of Warner Brothers and DC Films' The Blue Beetle movie continues to grow. The Wrap revealed that George Lopez has been cast as Uncle Rudy, with Babble's Adriana Barraza playing Nena, Predator's Elpidia Carrillo playing Rocio, and the Chronicles of Narnia Prince Caspian's Damien Alcazar playing Alberto. They join the previously announced Harvey Guillen, Bruna Marquezine, and Belissa Escobedo, as well as Zolo Mariduena, who plays Jaime Reyes / Blue Beetle. Okay. I, soldiered my way through all those names.
Congratulations. I remember when you mentioned that Roxio name, I was thinking Rufio? I don't know. Don't ask me why, but the Snyder Cut's Green Lantern actor shares new look at his cut Justice League scene. So actor Wayne T. Carr shared a photo of himself from his cut scene as John Stewart Green Lantern in Zack Snyder's Justice League. It had been something else that would have been like, where did this person come from? That is me editorializing. On Twitter, Carr revealed how his Green Lantern would have looked at the end of Justice League in a meeting with Bruce Wayne, Ben Affleck. So it would have been another epilogue. Great. Carr's sharing of the image came on the 1-year anniversary of the Snyder Cut, and he used the I'm not even going to do that hashtag because no. And if you're watching the video, you can see the Twitter image for Mr. Carr. Next
up, Netflix's Resident Evil live-action series is set to debut in July. I did not even know this was coming.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to debut on July 14th, and the Netflix live-action Resident Evil series is going to star Lance Reddick, Tyrone from the John Wick movies, also Lieutenant
Daniels
from The Wire. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Also Savala if you play Destiny 2.
What's that?
Also Savala if you play Destiny 2.
So. Okay.
I was expecting a who, but okay, that works also, I guess.
So, bottom line is, this is definitely something video game related. Obviously, that's what Destiny 2 is, and so that, it kind of it seems to be an area that Lance Reddick is running around in right now. The video game adaptations.
Apparently.
Right. Next up.
Bing. Marvel reportedly casting a major non-binary character for Ironheart. So Marvel Studios is reportedly looking to cast the MCU's very first non-binary character, who will supposedly play a significant role in the upcoming Disney Plus original series Ironheart. According to a Patreon port by Industry School. Why did I put that one in? Okay. Daniel RPK. Marvel's looking for a non-binary, genderqueer, or gender fluid actor of any ethnicity in their 20s or early 30s. The reported casting call is for an unnamed character who is described as being extremely intelligent, shrewd, and poised, according to Rickman. And I guess this character will appear in all 6 episodes of Ironheart. Which I'm trying to think of the people in her world that would be, and I can only think of one, and I don't know if that's going to be it, but sure, it could. Whose name I can't remember right now. But regardless, hey, if this ends up being true, there you go. Next.
Next up, Samuel L. Jackson seemingly revealed that Nick Fury is set to make an appearance in both the Marvels and Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. So while he's speaking on the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast, Jackson let it slip that his beloved super spy won't just be appearing in the upcoming Secret Invasion Disney Plus series. He says, quote, "When I was in London just now, it was Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, and the Marvels was happening. And we were getting ready to do Secret Invasion," said Jackson. So it was like 3 Marvel movies on one lot. I was kind of running around from place to place. Yeah, that's the part that kind of clues you in.
Mm-hmm.
So without completely revealing what he's doing, it does clue you in that he's running around.
Right. I mean, it's not surprising that he would be in the Marvels. The Ant-Man one, yeah, that one would be interesting if that ends up being the case. But yeah, him being in the next Captain Marvel movie wouldn't be that big of a surprise. So, anywho, Moon Knight is a standalone series, but it could be oh joy, I can't wait for Agent 7 to see this next 2. But it could be the origin story of a larger thing. Marvel's Moon Knight is currently a 6 episode series, which I guess we just found out, confirmed that recently with the teaser trailer. But Ethan Hawke says it could potentially become an origin for other Moon Knight stories. Speaking to Hawke, who plays Arthur Harrow, IGN asked if he and co-star Oscar Isaac has gone in treating this as a one-shot, or whether they'd be open to returning to their roles beyond the finale. Hawke was equivocal in his answer. "Quote unquote, the good news is that it is possibly both. It lives and breathes on its own merit. It functions as a limited series, and if people are engaged and excited by it, then it could be the origin of story of a larger thing." Sure, that's the that's the on the board answer, because you never know with these things. Next, I want you to take these next 2 actually, because they're connected.
There's 2 of them. All right,
they're potentially connected actually.
So, according to the latest issue of Production Weekly, a trustworthy industry publication that tracks and chronicles films and series, Marvel, in their stages of development, Marvel Studios is beginning work on a new cosmic project. The entry is simply listed as, quote, "Untitled Marvel Space Project," and sports the status of development. Of course, Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige is currently listed as the only producer attached to the project. Beyond its existence, nothing else is really known about what this mysterious chapter in the MCU will entail. So let's see. So I guess I'm going to move on to the next one and see what's up here.
So this came across today and could be connected to that, but I'm not entirely sure.
All right. So loading. All right, so this is a Deadline story. Marvel is developing a Nova project with Moon Knight scribe Sabir Pirzada. Richard Rider, aka Nova, looks to be joining the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as sources tell Deadline that Marvel is developing a Nova project with Moon Knight scribe Sabir Pirzada on board. Right. It's unknown for now whether this will be developed as a feature film or a limited series for Disney Plus. As always, Kevin Feige, as I said earlier, will produce. It'd be interesting to see if they go with Richard Rider instead of Sam Alexander. So, I'd be kind of curious to see what direction they decide to go in.
Right, and even as I read this, I'm like, this is what this article is speculation that it could be Richard Rider. They could very well be going with Sam Alexander. Or they could have both. Like maybe it could be a Marvel situation where like, hey, Rider was the first and then grooms young Sam as a new Nova.
Definitely a possibility.
Yeah, but we don't know. But I figured Agent 7 would get a kick out of this being a big Nova fan.
I'm not a big Nova fan, but at the end of the day, it's
Ooh.
nice that the character is getting some shine. And before we move on, I just wanted to say I was never a big Nova fan, but I appreciated Richard Rider's development during Annihilation. That was the big thing.
Okay.
It's not like I was reading New Warriors. Shout out to Matt Wang 97.
Indeed. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Next up, The Incredible Hulk will be streaming on HBO Max starting on April 1st. And that would be the Ed Norton movie, not the Ang Lee movie, if I'm not mistaken. So there you go. If you missed it, yeah, if you missed it the first go around, it'll be on HBO Max as opposed to Disney Plus. Go figure. Next up,
you got to hit 88 miles an hour to find out that Star Wars, The Mandalorian, is about to have Doc Brown on set. Christopher Lloyd is joining The Mandalorian, so he is on the call sheet for The Mandalorian. As it is now currently filming its third season in Southern California. Details for the character are being kept locked in the trunk of a DeLorean, but it has been described as guest starring in nature. Lucasfilm could not be reached for comment. Hey man, just let him jump in. That's Jim from Taxi.
Also, I was about to say he probably won't be looking for the Genesis device. So maybe something close to it. Who knows? Daniela Melchior in talks to join Fast and Furious 10 cast.
Ooh.
Ratcatcher.
I remember the Suicide Squad, but at the same time,
Put it away. It's the only other woman in Suicide Squad outside of Harley and Amanda Waller.
Right.
Yeah. So this report comes from The Wrap, who unfortunately doesn't have any character details on who Melchior would portray. Because sure. So we don't know if this is the case or not. Well, we don't know what's the case is in his. I wouldn't be surprised, put it that way. If it's in because they're getting pretty much everybody else. Next up.
So I'm not sure what part of our demographic watches Riverdale, but here's some news for you. So these are spoilers for Riverdale Season 6, Episode 6, Chapter 101, Unbelievable. Apparently in this episode, Betty Cooper and Archie Andrews gain some superpowers, and that's a little on the wacky side for me, but at the same time, pretty sure we've seen Archie crossover with all sorts of superheroic characters with powers, so nothing's ever really out of the realm of possibility with those kids in Riverdale.
Well, actually, ended up both of them and the rest of the crew ended up actually getting comic powers in the comics. There was a whole, I remember because I read them, because there was a whole storyline where Archie and all of them we don't even know how, but they end up going by various names, and Archie and Reggie was a foil in certain points and I'm not even going to go through all of that, but it was a thing from the comics. So it wasn't just that he was crossing over. It actually happened to him. The fact that it's shown up in, or some semblance of that is showing up in Riverdale is kind of crazy, but yeah, there it is, I guess. Next up, we get into the anime corner.
Anime corner. Let's see, what do we play today?
Sure, that works. Gundam 00 anime gets revealed Chronicles CG anime. So the Gundam Figures Live event revealed on Thursday that the Gundam Mobile Suit Gundam 00 anime is getting a new CG anime project titled Revealed Chronicle. Seiji Mishijima, the director of the previous Gundam 00 anime, is reuniting with staff for stories that weren't told in the original anime. Excuse me, the event unveiled the teaser trailer for the anime and the new Gundam devised Exia model at a certain point in the video, of which you can find in the article in the show notes, if you are so inclined. Next.
Spy X Family Anime's video reveals previews theme song. So the official website for the television anime of Tetsuya Endo's Spy X Family manga began streaming the full promotional video for the anime on Friday. The video reveals and previews the anime's opening theme song, Mixed Nuts by official Hige Dandism, and the ending theme song, Kigeki, comedy by Jen Hoshino. So, yeah, this is apparently we've talked about this before, that this is a popular manga that they are now putting into an anime. And it'll probably be on Crunchyroll because that will be everybody's only option.
Funny you should mention that. We will get to that in a moment. But Code Geass's matter of fact, you know what? Let's go ahead and say it right now. Yeah. Wait, where is the story? Here we go. Rising of the Shield Hero Spy X Family headline Crunchyroll Spring 22 season. So yeah, Crunchyroll announced its initial lineup for the spring 2022. The aforementioned Rising of the Shield Hero Spy X Family, Requiem of the Rose Queen, and Naruto Next Generations, and a few others to be said are coming in late March and April. And if you go to the article in the show notes, you can see the listing of what is coming during the spring season. Sadly, I am not seeing Fire Force Season 3 in this. But I am looking forward to Spy X Family because I've heard good things about it, and I know I have a friend of mine that's reading the manga. Anyway, you can get that Code Geass story if you don't mind.
Code Geass director's new anime, A Stab Life, sets Crunchyroll premiere date. So, A Stab Life Great Escape will soon premiere on Crunchyroll on March 23rd, 2 weeks before the anime begins its television broadcast in Japan.
Next up, Netflix is releasing a Tekken anime series this year, and there's a teaser trailer for it. Sadly, no one got thrown into a volcano. But nevertheless, Tekken Bloodline is the anime that's coming later this year, and the series revealed in a 1.5-minute official teaser trailer. There's no exact date or mention of the episode count, but the summary reveals that it will focus on Jin Kazama, who joined the series as a character in Tekken 3. Wait, I thought this character's been there. For those who don't know, I believe he is the grandson of Heihachi or something like that. I don't remember. Regardless, there you go. Yeah. Next up, Adult Swim orders 2 new FLCL Fooly Cooly series for Toonami's birthday. So the anime-heavy programming block celebrated its 25th anniversary the other week. And, if you're a fan of this anime that I had a lot of trouble getting through, good for you. Yeah, it's a weird one. I did mention that to you. It is a very weird one. One Piece teases a confidential live-action reveal with intriguing photos. Apparently, there's a Twitter with the spyglass and a confidential bunch of papers and Luffy's straw hat and some rulers and whatnot. With the date 3/28 Monday, March 28th. Looks like it's an image of Cape Town, South Africa, where the live-action reboot is currently being filmed also. So I guess that might be when this is coming or something, or a trailer for this coming, probably, more likely. Who knows? We'll see. Next.
Ray takes the spotlight in a new trailer for Detective Conan spin-off Zero's Tea Time. Netflix confirms a release window for the show with a new trailer showcasing the spin-off anime's opening and closing theme. So this is Detective Conan Zero's Tea Time. It's going to stream worldwide on Netflix sometime in July of this year. So is there an Andy Richter as well?
Boom, boom. Moving right along. I see what you did there, though. Jujutsu Kaisen Zero soars to number 2 debut at domestic box offices. I've seen that movie come up on my timeline a few times over the course of this week. But yeah, it says that it made some money from the Thursday preview that was on March 17th. followed by more money the day after, and the whole weekend prior after that. And it's basically giving the Batman a run for his money here in the States. I have not yet to watch it, and thankfully has not been spoiled. But
Right.
yeah,
I was invited to go. I was tied up, had a meeting the same night that it would have been a movie protocol night because of the opening night on Thursday. So, but I literally had a meeting that abutted right before our show tonight on a Thursday, that is.
Gotcha.
So I did not have a chance to go watch the movie with one of the members of my anime committee, so advisory committee. So I was told that it was good. I do need though to refresh my memory because Jujutsu Kaisen was one of the first animes that I worked my way through because it was only one season. So it's been a while since I've had to give any thought to what was going on in that in the story.
From what I understand, it's prior to the events of the season, so
Right.
might not have to.
That's why it's a 0.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's more about what I was going to say is that it's more about like understanding like the whole idea of the curses and how they work.
I see. Okay. Well,
not so much story wise. It's more about like why the story's being told and what the mechanisms are for like how things are happening.
I feel like it might explain that, but yeah, sure. Going into it with a little bit something that won't hurt. And now we are going over into the comic book section, but still staying into the anime corner. My Hero Academia reveals why Toga might be Deku's deadliest enemy. It's spoiler alert for chapter 347 of the manga. I don't know too much about what is going on in here because I have
not read this.
Any of it. Huh?
I read the manga.
Okay, so you're already up on it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, is it good to that point?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like from between where the anime leaves off and where the manga is now, it's a pretty wild story. And I can only imagine what that's going to look like animated. It's definitely a superhero story. There's lots of action, there's lots of fighting. It's definitely that type of shonen. It's not like a day in the life shonen or a school shonen. This is a hero. And I don't think there are very many superhero shonen stories. So this is definitely a subgenre of its own because of how strongly the creator, I believe it's Horikoshi, was influenced by American superhero stories, both movie and comic book.
Yeah, I guess as technically as this and One Punch Man, like right off the bat, but I can't really think of any. I mean, I don't know if I would put like the one other I can think of that is drawing a blank right now. But yeah, these are the two main ones I can think of at this point. So, but yeah, I've seen a lot of this character Toga Himiko come up in the last week or two also. So that's interesting. Next up though,
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure spinoff kicks off new multi-part story. This thus spoke. Rohan Kishibe will return with its multi-chapter 10th story. So here's another anime I haven't yet started. So thus spoke Rohan Kishibe, the longest-running JoJo's Bizarre Adventure spinoff, will return on April 5th with a new multi-part story. I'm just looking to see, when this is supposed to come out. None of this makes sense to me. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, you hadn't gotten to JoJo's yet.
Yeah.
And there's a probably good chance you may or may not watch this.
All right.
I don't know. I mean, I can't say for certain. I know this is on, because I know there is the anime version of this is on Netflix, and I don't know how far it goes, but yeah, like whether you like JoJo's enough to go into this, I don't know.
All right.
So anyway, Tokyo Revengers manga put on indefinite hiatus. According to a post from reputable anime and manga industry leader, some person, I'm not even gonna go through all of that, which was then translated by Siliconera. The Tokyo's Revengers manga has been forced to take a break. This is apparently rumor at this point, so take it for whatever that is. Due to multiple people involved with the series, creator Ken Wakui catching the COVID-19 virus. While the report does not specifically state if Wakui or any of the other staff members working on the manga have caught the virus, it does state that the infections have made it difficult to continue production on the series for the time being. A return date for the manga, which is currently in the middle of publishing its final story arc, has yet to be announced. So there you go. Next.
Jujutsu Kaisen finally reveals Yuta's cursed technique. So this is a spoiler for chapter 178 of Sendai Colony Part 5. This is the manga. So, this is probably a spoiler for the vast majority of people who are interested in Jujutsu Kaisen. So I won't necessarily talk about this because I'm tired. I kind of don't want to read the article. But at the end of the day, if you're really interested, make sure to check out our show notes and click on this. But this manga has several chapters in it, and we're only obviously they sometimes adapt more than one chapter of manga per anime episode. So we may catch up to this very soon, but it's hard to say in terms of the people who watch the anime.
Right. Young Justice, we get into comic books proper. Young Justice returns for the Death of Justice League Dark Crisis event series. So yeah, that we said earlier. Shout out to Tim, by the way, who wrote this article. I'm just seeing. Dark Crisis, the DC event that promises to kill the Justice League, will include a spin-off series starring the teenage heroes of Young Justice, which I know Tim's a fan of. Dark Crisis Young Justice is a 6-issue miniseries that comes from the creative team of writer Megan Fitzmartin, of Batman Urban Legends fame, and artist Laura Braga. It brings together the founding members of the Young Justice, Red Robin, Impulse, Superboy, and Wonder Girl after the deaths of their, and I'm assuming that's Cassie Sandsmark, not Yara Flor, after the deaths of their mentors. The series will find the trio missing after the Justice League's funeral, with Wonder Girl leading their search party. According to South Wire, the heroes are lost on the world of their dreams, one they may not ever want to leave, according to this. Do we have, see, there's covers in this article. I don't know if we get some stuff. Boy, that funeral looks like an identity crisis. That's weird. I don't see a date on here for that. Oh wait, here we go. June 21st for Dark Crisis Young Justice #1. Next.
The Batman's Riddler, at least from when we say the Batman, we mean the current or the most recent movie. Paul Dano is going to write Riddler Year One comic. So this is a DC Black Label limited series that is going to kick off this October. Let's see here. Riddler Year One of 6-issue bi-monthly limited series is set to launch October 2022. So that's going to give Dano and European artist Stevan Subic time to make sure that they finish on time.
Sure. I remember when I saw this article, people were like, wait, is someone doing the art? It can't be art. Is Paul Dano doing the art also? Because you know how people kind of get around that. You get the writer being talked about, but not the art or anybody else on the creative team. So
it depends.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've seen, like I said, this was coming from artists. So or when I was seeing all of this. Either way, DC and Milestone reveals Milestones in History details. So DC and Milestone Comics announced their plans for Milestones in History, a one-shot 96-page anthology of comics about Black historical figures that will end in a teaser for the first big Milestones comic event. The anthology will go on sale June 14th with a main cover by Criss Cross and a wraparound variant by Doug Braithwaite.
Sorry, hit a button.
Okay. Not a problem. And then the rest of the article kind of goes into the the figures and stories that are going to go into the anthology. With June 14th, like I said, is the date for this book. Next.
Death of the Justice League. Joshua Williamson details how DC's greatest heroes die. Nobody buys their comics.
Wow.
That's how. All right, so this Death of the Justice League is written by Joshua Williamson and with artwork by Rafa Sandoval. The story unfolds in April's Justice League number 75, and it goes from there.
Yeah. Sure, we'll be talking about it. DC celebrates Pride Month with a sweetly romantic Tim Drake cover. So, as a part of his Pride Month celebration, DC is reprinting Tim Drake's coming out story from Batman Urban Legends as a standalone special, complete with romantic covert art, and a new tale setting up Tim's story moving forward. As folks may or may not know, Tim came out as bisexual fairly recently, and the story will be collected in DC Pride Tim Drake special, number 1, which is going to be 64 pages, prestige format, one shots, and that's going to come out on June the 14th, smack in the middle of Pride Month, according to this article. Next up.
Why is this news? Harley Quinn goes full Batman while donning her classic suit. Apparently, she puts on the Batman costume while she's still in her classic costume as originally depicted in Batman the Animated Series. This is a spoiler for some comic, maybe. Yeah, Harley Quinn number 13.
Actually, that came out this week. That's why it's news. Next up. Major DC superhero was murdered in the latest Human Target, which actually I think also came out this week. Human Target number 6. And if this cover is any indication, I guess that might be who it is, but I can only hope. From the first pages of Tom King and Greg Smallwood's Human Target, we've known that a DC character was going to die. The series revolves around the titular Christopher Chance, who's been poisoned in an assassination gone wrong. Chance has 12 days and 12 books to live and to solve his murder. But by the end, we are absolutely certain he'll shuffle off this mortal coil. In books 6 came out this week. He's not the only one, and the rest is spoilers for this week's issue of Human Target. Next.
So the Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League video game is now officially delayed until spring of 2023. Just be glad, you gamers, that it's only a year.
Yeah, give us some more time to bake. Sometimes that happens. Yeah, I know that other that Gotham Knights game also got pushed, but that's still coming out this year. So that's, this one was a more significant push than that one tends to be. But I think that one might have started earlier. So either way, Xbox Game Pass Ultimate now includes 3 months of Marvel Unlimited comic book subscription. Apparently. So if folks are familiar with Game Pass Ultimate, that's when there's a bunch of free games that you can peruse in Xbox's library, but also that comes with some perks sometimes, or with like Discord subscriptions, Spotify subscriptions for a couple of months and whatnot. This is Marvel kind of getting in on the act and adding 3 months of Marvel Unlimited. So that's pretty cool. It might be out there now. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm not. But it's basically, it says it is coming. It says one important thing to note that you must be a new, of course, Marvel Unlimited subscriber to take advantage of this deal, because that's how most of that stuff ends up going. Next.
Image Comics reveals dual Powerbomb series from Wonder Woman, Dead Earth creator. If you're a fan of the world of professional wrestling and happen to also love gorgeous comics, you're going to be over the moon with Image Comics' new series from writer and artist Daniel Warren Johnson, who's cool colorist Mike Spicer, and letterer Russ Wooten. The new series is titled Do a Powerbomb and will run for 7 issues, and it tells the story of pro wrestler Lona Steel Rose, who's currently holding the most desired championship in the world, or at least that's what she thinks, The series looks drop dead gorgeous. Ah, this is all some fucking opinion. And you can check out a preview of the first issue starting on the next. Oh, Jesus. Fine.
Ages 7 is a little cranky, a little tired. It's okay. Marvel ushers in Judgment Day event with Eve of Judgment number 1 Prelude coming in June. So we all know about Judgment Day. We know it's coming. It's the event that's being written by Kieran Gillen and artist Valerie Sheedes. I'm assuming that's Valerio. That's just a typo. But it's 6-issue limited series in July. June 29th is where the Prelude AXE Eve of Judgment is number 1 is slated to release. Yeah, that's pretty much that. Next up.
So we're doing the Hellfire Gala all over again this year, and now the X-Men, Avengers, and more are looking quote-unquote fabulous in the new 2022 Hellfire Gala variant covers that are going to be arriving this June. Like, you know, it's literally almost right around the corner. Like, we're already almost in April. So it's definitely something that, you know, we'll see how successful they are the second time around. And, you know, obviously the Krakoan, the story of Krakoa continues, but we'll see how long that lasts. But it's definitely cool that they're taking this in a different direction, especially in another artistic direction.
Yep. Yeah, and if you've been on the internet, been on Twitter, you've probably seen some of these images of some of the fits. I like Sam's and Steve's joints down there. It looks pretty good. But yeah, you can check that out. The rest of them down in the article. In the show notes. Black Panther is about to become Marvel's biggest trader. And this is spoiler alert for Black Panther. Wait, did this come out already? Wait, did you talk about this already? Black Panther number 4? Do you remember?
Wasn't this out last week?
I don't know. That's what I was wondering. I was like, wait a minute. If that's the case, we don't need to talk about it. But I thought this was for something coming, and not something that was here.
No, I think we were only up to issue 3. I want to say.
Well, here we go. So in June, the June solicits, the publisher revealed that Wakanda could be headed for a potentially dangerous chapter of history after the Black Panther is thrown out of his company by a group of militarized leaders. Then the plot to synopsis is for Black Panther number 7, which is coming out in June. We don't necessarily have to go through talking about all
I think what it is that ultimately, you know, what's been going on in the first several issues, I think leads to this particular story point.
Gotcha. And I guess somewhere in this article is probably spoiling something for the last issue that's coming out. I got you. Okay. Which now that I think about it, I don't remember if I read, but so I'm just gonna skip that and move to the next story. Next.
What, the Evil King, right?
Yeah.
Marvel's new Evil King of New York King of New York City is Miles Morales. So this is some multiversal stuff. Care of Brian Michael Bendis, one of the lasting gifts that he left us before he moved over to the Distinguished Competition. So this is some June 2022 solicitation news where, you know, we got a preview of Miles Spider-Man number 39, and in the issue we see you know, Miles and Shift, the friendly spider clone that only says glurp, continue on their multiversal adventure only to find that New York City is not quite the same as when they left it. The preview reads Miles and Shift's hunt through the multiverse has landed them back in New York City, but it's not the NYC they know, it's the Empire of the Spider. And that probably has the alternative Miles, or this variant Miles, as a version of the Kingpin.
Yeah. At first, I thought it was that other clone that got away, but apparently that's not the case here. So we will talk about it when we get to it. Take this next one from me, if you don't mind.
I'm getting it open now. Really? All right, so the first Marvel comic just sold for over 2 million. Getting the article up now. So 1939's Marvel Comics #1 was the company's first comic, and an extra special version of it just sold at auction. So let's see here. So the New York Times reported a copy in a apparently amazing 9.2 graded condition sold on the auction site Comic Connect for 2.4 million to an anonymous buyer. That's less than some of the aforementioned comics that can sell for over 3 million. You know, we're talking about like Superman, Batman, like the early stuff. But this specific copy of Marvel Comics #1 was discovered in the mid-90s and was once owned by Lloyd, who owned a company called Funnies Inc. That company sold blah, 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 blah. Yeah, so apparently, it was found in this dude's collection, and he was an important part of comic books in the early times because his company sold artwork to comic book publishers, and this specific comic has Jaquette's notes on how much his company owed some of the book's artists. So it's quote unquote a pay copy of Marvel Comics #1.
Right, gotcha. It's actually because when I saw this article, it kind of reminded me of something I was going to bring up, but I'm not going to do it now. And the keeping of comic books and how early on I never did properly until later on. But like I said, that's another.
Oh, you mean like learning how to store them?
Right, and
that's a fact of life for everybody.
I know,
but
I'm
unless you have like an older sibling or an older relative or an older friend that shows you, from jump and is able to help you, get a supply of comic book supplies, comic book storage supplies, the vast majority of people who are like casual to, let's say newsstand collectors, left their comics in piles.
Me.
So it's no surprise that that's the case, because sometimes comic book stores were few and far in between, in lots of places around the country.
Yeah, like I said, this kind of had me thinking, like, boy, if I knew that earlier than when I realized that was a thing that should happen more often, like my collection would be in a lot better shape than the early part of it would be. Put it that way.
Gotcha.
Like at some point I learned and kind of took care of them a little bit better, but it's like, yeah, man, there's a whole lot of books that could have been not necessarily worth something, but could they have been worth for me, but would have been better preserved if I had known better early on. Anyway, these last two are pretty much about that Godzilla versus Power Rangers issue that I talked about already, so we don't necessarily have to go into them, but there is a new trailer for it if you are so inclined to check it out, or the issue's already out, so you can check it out one way or the other. Either way, that is the end of the news section. You got another ad read?
Our last ad read of the night. You know what we read when we're trying to go home and get the heck out of here. Keep our podcast free by shopping at Amazon. Visit cspn.us and click the Keep Our Podcast Free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down and click on the Amazon link to shop. Purchase items from Amazon as you normally would, whether it's books, music, electronics, jewelry, apparel, or Marvel Legends. For every purchase made on Amazon through our link, Amazon sends the CSPN a payment that helps us keep the Comic Book Chronicles podcast free for our listeners at no extra cost to you. Amazon.com through cspn.us. Do it today.
All right, folks, that is it. I know we kind of rushed through this for a little bit, but actually we didn't. Technically, if we're on our stuff, we can get through in a pretty decent time. So, this has been a pretty good show, I say, despite. I have been Rodicat. You can find me at Rodicat on Twitter. You can find me at News No Needs on Twitter. You can find me at CBCaps on Instagram. I've actually put some stuff up about, there recently, so yeah, go check that out. Agent _70 on Twitter and Instagram. PCN_dirt on Twitter, Pop Culture Net on Twitter, popculturenetwork.com and his umbrella sites therein. Tim, DOGG98 on Twitter, CB Cron also on Twitter, which is the Comic Book Chronicles Twitter account, The Click Nation on Twitter, also theclicknation.com, that's the KLIQNATION, and also you can find Tim over at comicbook.com, where he's over there writing his face off. Okay. You can find this here show on the Cold Slither Podcast Network. That's CSPN.us.
Do it today.
You can also find us on your podcast browser place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Cold Slither Podcast Network SoundCloud page. You can also find us recording every Thursday night, 9:30-ish p.m., which hopefully was probably going to be more of a thing than not, on the Click Nation's YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/theclicknation and twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles. Hey, give us a follow on those accounts if you want to see us when we go live, and obviously follow our Twitter accounts to see to get the notifications. Smash that like button, all that kind of good mess.
5-star reviews.
Yeah. All of that. Make them good 5-star reviews. Don't be a jerk and be like 5 stars. This show sucks. I've seen those. At any rate, folks, this has been the Comic Book Chronicles. Peace.
Peace. One.
Peace out.